Willpower. Chapter 4, Deliberative Will. You are now asked to consider that phase of willpower known as the stage of deliberative will. Deliberation is defined as the act of deliberating or weighing in the mind. In the stage of deliberation, you weigh with more or less care the general or special alternative courses of action presenting themselves to the will. Each of the alternative courses possesses certain points of attraction and also certain points of repulsion. The attractive points arise from the promise of emotional satisfaction and content. The points of repulsion arise from the threat of emotional dissatisfaction and discontent. These opposing points are to be balanced one against the other to the end that the stage of determination and the resulting stage of voluntary action may be reached, and the processes of will thereby completed. You probably have been accustomed to regard the process of deliberation as one concerned solely with intellectual activity. You probably have imagined that when you deliberate concerning alternative courses of action, you approach the matter in the spirit of cold reasoning, and that your decision is made wholly from the standpoint of logical judgment. But as a matter of fact, the part played by your intellect and reason in the deliberation concerning actions and in the judgments resulting from this usually is merely the part of the searcher after facts relating to one, the direction and means whereby the greatest emotional satisfaction and content may be secured, and two, the probable results of the action along the lines of either of the two alternative courses. The said results always being measured by their probable effect upon your state of emotional satisfaction and content. In short, your reason is employed to search the records of experience in order to discover and uncover the associations and relations of each of the two alternative courses of action, to the end that you may have the fullest possible information concerning the probable ultimate emotional value of each action, and also to discover and recommend to the will the most effective methods whereby you may apply either of the alternative courses of action if such is accepted. It is true that in the case of persons of trained intellectual powers of wide experience, well-stocked memory, and active constructive imagination, the intellectual faculties play a far more important part in the process of deliberation and decision than in the cases in which these processes are performed by persons lacking these mental qualifications and this extended experience. Reason performs valuable services in the direction of holding up to the will the probable results of given alternative courses of action, that the will may more clearly determine the actual emotional value of those courses. It also renders valuable service to the will in the matter of discovering, uncovering, inventing, and creating methods whereby the good of the will may best be realized and expressed. In this, and in similar ways, it provides the will with positive and negative motives for choice and action, and thus throws additional weight into the alternative courses upon which deliberation is being had. Reason serves will in this way by placing its forces of memory, imagination, and association of ideas at the disposal of will. It also aids will in the direction of furnishing it with the fullest possible information concerning the alternative courses of action under consideration by telling it all about them to the best of its ability. This is of the greatest value in the process of deliberation and very often determines the decision. A course of action clearly and definitely known has a very great advantage as a candidate for will action over one not so known. Reason proceeds to aid will in this way with a machine-like coldness, provided that emotion be kept from interfering with the work. Reason has nothing to gain but the satisfaction of its own nature and thought. Reason is very cold-blooded and tends to proceed with the appalling inexorableness of a machine. It is unfeeling and unmoral. It proceeds logically from premise to conclusion without regard to emotional or moral values. But at the last, reason acting as an aid to will is always found to be operating merely in the direction of discovering facts concerning the probable emotional value of courses of action under consideration, or else to be planning and deciding upon the most effective methods of expressing and manifesting those desires or ideas and ideals connected with desires, which have been accepted by the will as containing the promise of emotional value. In short, reason in such cases is concerned merely with the task of uncovering or in directing the effective expression of certain courses of action possessing emotional value. This emotional value is always determined by the greater degree of promised emotional satisfaction and content, or the least degree of threatened emotional dissatisfaction and discontent. You should note here, however, the following distinction. The emotional element is directly involved only in deliberation and decision concerning the advisability of performing certain actions or courses of action. It is involved in this way in all questions of to do or not to do, and to all questions of which of these two courses of action shall I choose. It is not involved in this way in cases of purely intellectual effort or processes of logical reasoning, as for instance in the working out of problems of formal logic or mathematics. Neither is it directly involved in cases in which reason is called upon to decide and determine which of certain ideas, plans, methods, or courses of procedure will best serve to accomplish certain definite ends and aims. In cases of the latter class, the deliberation and decision concerning the advisability of undertaking certain tasks or courses of action have been previously performed along the lines of comparative emotional value. And all that now remains to be deliberated and decided is how best to carry out and execute the designs already adopted, and in what way may best be accomplished the ends already accepted as being emotionally advantageous. The rule, however, applies invariably to all cases in which you experience the conflicting pulls or pushes of I want to do this in one way, while in another way, I do not want to do it. Or in cases in which you may say to yourself, this seems to be what I want, or to lead me to what I want, but I fear that it may bring about complications or related results which I do not want. Or where you say to yourself, I want to do this and I want to do that, but I do not know which I want to do more than the other. In such cases, the conflict really is a desire conflict or an emotional conflict, and not a direct intellectual conflict at all. You may feel inclined to resent this statement and probably may even indignantly deny its truth. Many persons feel this way when first this fact is presented to them. For most of us like to think that we decide every question of conduct and action from the standard of pure logic and cold reason, but we do not do so at all in cases such as we have just mentioned. If you cannot see the truth of this statement and are inclined to dispute it, you would do well to submit it to the following test of your own reason and experience and settle it at once and for all. For unless it is settled in your mind, you may not be able to enter fully into the spirit of certain points of our instruction, which are based upon this particular psychological principle. Here is the test of reason and experience. Apply it to yourself honestly and in the scientific spirit, and answer it in the same way. Ask yourself the following questions. What are the true reasons governing my decisions concerning alternative courses of action and conduct, or of refraining from any certain action or course of conduct in which the element of feeling, emotion, affection, or desire is involved? Do I or do I not consider and decide the question of shall I or shall I not, or which shall I do or choose, from the standpoint and with the motive of securing the greatest emotional satisfaction and content, or the least emotional dissatisfaction and discontent, the greatest pleasure or the least pain? In answering these questions, you should bear in mind that the pleasure and pain may be immediate and remote, and may be concerned directly with your own personal experience or that of others in whom you are interested or to whom you are connected by the bonds of sympathy or affection. All of these forms of emotional satisfaction and content, or emotional dissatisfaction and discontent, come under the general rule. A careful self-analysis and a frank, honest report based thereupon is certain to bring to you the conviction that your deliberations and decisions in cases of this kind concerning your actions or courses of conduct invariably are conducted and made upon this basis of the greatest emotional value. The reasons for your actions and courses of conduct are never divorced from your feelings, affections, and desires. In fact, in the absence of feeling, affection, and desire, there could not and would not be any reasons at all for your actions or courses of conduct. The only reason, the only cause and because of your actions or of your choice of actions or of your acting at all is the reason, the cause, and the because arising from the promise of emotional satisfaction and content or the threat of the opposite result. The probable emotional value, in short, passed upon to some extent by reason. Sometimes it is difficult to trace back the path to the determining feeling, affection, or desire of an action or course of conduct. So remote or so complex such may be at times, but the influence of the feeling, the affection, or the desire is always there, animating and inspiring the action or course of conduct. For otherwise, there would and could be no reason, cause, or because at all for your conduct or action, and consequently no answer to the question why asked concerning such an action or conduct. In this connection, you should remember that we include habit resulting from antecedent actions based upon emotional content among the emotional motives. You know that it is more comfortable to act according to habit than contrary thereto, and comfortable implies feeling and desire. Before conative will is transferred into active will, there must occur a greater or less degree of mental activity in the stage of deliberation. Conative will becomes transformed into active will only in response to some idea or object calling it forth into expression and manifestation. There are usually several alternative ideas or objects presented to the will for decision and choice, or at least there is the alternative or to do or not to do. Here, deliberative will, assisted by intellect, weighs and appraises these conflicting alternatives. The process of deliberation may be extended over a considerable period of time, or else it may be almost instantaneous, but it is always performed. Pleasure and pain, agreeable or disagreeable mental states, are the precedents of all definite activities of will. Action is found always to proceed toward the most agreeable and away from the most disagreeable mental state. The will is always interested, never disinterested in its actions. It always moves to gain some end, to acquire something which to it seems good. Life is largely a matter of securing the agreeable and escaping the disagreeable. But it must not be forgotten that by the shifting of the mental point of view, our emotional feelings often change from the agreeable to the disagreeable and vice versa. Sometimes there is a violent shifting from one pole to the other of our emotional nature. Such changes arise from the discovery of new attributes in the objects and ideas presenting themselves for deliberation, decision, and determination. Thus, while feeling, affection, and desire are the motives for all will actions, the other mental faculties play an important part by presenting to them the ideas and mental images which tend to influence and direct the emotional faculties, and thus have an important influence on will itself. Finding your definite purposes. We shall now illustrate to you the process of deliberative will by an appeal to your own personal experience. While doing this, you will also be obtaining some practical exercise along the lines of efficient deliberative will, work, and activity. In the following illustrations and examples, the particular principles under consideration will be brought out, and at the same time, you will take several important steps in the direction of actual practice and training of your willpower. Instead of illustrating the principles in question by introducing abstract and impersonal examples or instances, we shall employ illustrations and examples from your own personal experiences, so that in examining these illustrative examples, you will at the same time be actually exercising the mental faculties which furnish them. Begin by asking yourself the following question. For what purpose do I wish to develop and train my willpower and to manifest it in action? In what direction do I wish to apply and employ it when I have acquired it? What is the chief end which I seek to accomplish and to attain through the possession and manifestation of developed and trained willpower? Upon your answers to these questions must depend the character of your special instruction and information to be obtained by you from the study of this book. Think well over these questions, ponder them carefully, and answer them fully, frankly, and honestly to yourself. You will do well to commit your answers to writing for future reference. To think with pencil and paper is a very helpful method and one advised in the course of this instruction. The following suggestions and advice should materially aid you in the task of discovering and uncovering your definite purposes toward the attainment and achievement of which you seek to develop and train your willpower. If you are like most persons who undertake this task of determination of their definite purposes, which they seek to attain and achieve by means of their willpower, you will find yourself perplexed to furnish the correct answers to the questions just propounded to you, and which you are expected to answer as fully as possible. You, like many others, probably have not as yet found yourself in this important matter. That is to say, you have not as yet discovered and uncovered your definite purposes in life. If this be so, then this instruction has reached you at the right time, because until you discover and uncover your definite purposes, you cannot expect to employ efficiently even that degree of willpower which you have already developed, not to speak of that additional degree which you hope to attain. Most persons in this stage, and this probably includes yourself, find themselves filled with merely a vague and general, though perhaps quite strong inclination and tendency to push forward into action, thereby to attain and achieve that which will be good to them and for them. They feel the general outward pressure of conative will, but they do not as yet know in just what direction to exert that inner power. This condition is all right so far as it goes, but it does not go far enough. The sense of willpower is there, but willpower without definite purpose is inefficient and useless. There is needed here a strong, definite, positive, purposive direction for the conative will. We shall now present to you the methods whereby this needed element may be supplied. Dominant desires. In the first place, you should discover your dominant desires, i.e. the strongest and most insistent desires which abide within your mental and emotional being. It is no easy matter to discover and uncover your dominant desires without some instruction concerning the process. You will find that your mental and emotional being is filled with a multitude of desires, great and small, transient and permanent, many of which oppose and interfere with others. There is required of you a determined and careful weighing and measuring of your desires, the element of depth and width, as well as of weight, being taken into the calculation. There must be a weeding of the desire garden, a cutting away of the dead wood of the tree of desire, a test of strength and vitality between opposing sets of desires, resulting in the survival of the fittest. In that book of this series entitled Desire Power, which we have gone into detail and into an extended consideration of this process of the discovery of the dominant desires, to which you are referred if you are especially interested in the subject. The detailed and extended consideration of this special feature cannot be repeated in this book and is confined to that book dealing with the special subject of desire power. The following condensed synopsis, however, will serve to give you the essence and substance of the general principle involved. 1. The regions of the mind are explored for the purpose of bringing to light the various feelings, emotions, affections, longings, and desires which compose your emotional nature. These, as they are brought to light, are carefully noted on a written list. 2. Then begins the process of elimination as follows. A. The weaker and less insistent desires, and those plainly of a transient, passing nature, are struck from the list, leaving there only the stronger and more permanent ones. B, the list is then again carefully scrutinized. Those desires which stand out by reason of their superior power are retained, the remainder being eliminated. C, the process is continued along these lines of critical selection until further elimination is deemed inadvisable for fear of cutting away live wood. 3, then the surviving desires are arranged into classes, and these classes are subjected to competition with each other, the stronger and more permanent being retained while the weaker and less permanent are discarded. Number 4, then the surviving sets of desires are compared carefully for the purpose of discovering antagonism and opposition, i.e., the qualities of contradiction which render coordination and harmonious cooperation impossible, and which tend to pull the will in two opposite directions and thus to bring it to a standstill or a dead center. 5, the opposing and contradictory sets of qualities must be pitted in competition against each other, for one or the other must be discarded from the field of the will. Each must be viewed from every possible mental and emotional angle and subjected to the most rigid tests. The final result will reveal the stronger of each opposing and contradictory sets of qualities, those which have won in the struggle for existence and which represent the survival of the fittest. The survivors in this process of selection and elimination will represent the strongest and most deeply rooted desires of the individual and will constitute his dominant desires. These dominant desires represent his strongest and most enduring affections based upon his most vigorous, hardy, and sturdy feelings, and rising to the stage of conative will in the form of insistent desire. They represent that which one wants hard enough, wants so insistently as to render him willing to pay the price of its attainment. Energizing ideas. But desire is not the only element involved in deliberative will. In fact, it may be said that every great department of mental activity is involved therein. The presence of ideas and ideals is necessary in the process of deliberation. Action is influenced by representative ideas of objects and things of the outside world. Each clear and strong idea opens a path to possible action and therefore constitutes an element of the deliberative process. Memory and imagination are also called into play with great effect in the processes of deliberative will. Professor Halleck says, the greater variety of ideas a man has, the more numerous are the courses of action open to him. If an intelligent physician has an idea of 25 different methods of treating rheumatism, he may vary his treatment accordingly and may succeed where a less skilled doctor would fail. If a businessman has a dozen ideas to fit a given emergency, he may act in any one of these directions. If he has but one idea, he can act but in one direction. Idea must proceed to open a path for intelligent action. Before Columbus sailed, he had an idea of land beyond the seas. Even a plumber must have an idea of how to make a shortcut for his pipe before he can do it. The same well-known teacher said, deliberation is a process of both intellect and will, of intellect to represent ideas and compare them, and of will to hold the ideas before the attention or to dismiss them and make room for others. In the deliberative process, the whole man makes himself felt. All his past experiences count. In impulsive action, the momentary state triumphs. Let us take a rational human action and see how much deliberation may be involved in it. I wish to leave the city during the heated term. Before I act, I not only have the desire to go, but I must know where to go. I find out the location, the merits, and the defects of a number of summer resorts. Then I proceed to deliberate. A has surf bathing. B is on a mountain and has fine tonic air. C is nearby and some of my friends are going there, but the mosquitoes are annoying and will not allow one to take a walk with any comfort. D has fine air and no mosquitoes, but the place is too fashionable and too much given to dress. E suits for all reasons save that it is too expensive. F would answer, but it is too far off. I then take into my deliberations the possibility of staying all summer in the city. 3 hot days come. The nights are so warm that one cannot sleep. I then continue my deliberations about the summer resorts. Will is necessarily present in this most important aspect in every act of deliberation. I balance one idea against another. By willpower, I turn my attention undivided upon one idea. Then I dismiss it and turn my attention to another. I consider the surf bathing of A, the mountain air of B, the annoyance of C, the fashion of D, the expense of E, and the distance of F. The intellectual faculties are called into play in the process of deliberative will in the way pictured in the above illustration concerning the matter of choice of summer resorts. It produces from the region of imagination and memory many facts bearing upon each of the alternative courses of action. It brings up the associated and related facts which add to or detract from the merits of the alternative. It also serves to expose the false nature of some of the alternative courses of action and to add to the validity of the others. It acts in the direction of choosing and adapting means to given ends, and it establishes the logical relation of cause and effect between different things. Before one can know what he wants, he must understand the true nature of the alternative wants. He must know the relations and consequences, the associations and the results of particular courses of action. The person who wishes to know intelligently just what he wants and just what course of general action will bring to him the greatest ultimate content and satisfaction must employ his reasoning faculties in addition to exploring his emotional nature. He must use head as well as heart. He must learn how to observe and examine things, how to obtain correct perceptions, how to form logical judgments, how to use his powers of imagination and memory in the task. As Halleck has said, in the deliberative process, the whole man makes himself felt. The subject of deliberative will blends into and harmonizes with that of determinative will in many particulars. Determination is the final step or stage of deliberation, and at the same time, the first step or stage of voluntary action. With this fact in mind, let us now proceed to the consideration of determinative will, to which subject the following section of the book is devoted.